Awesome. How are you, DV?
I'm good. I'm good. I wanted to get you on about this event because there's an event that you guys have going on. We're going to talk about it a little bit later, but I really wanted to get you on. So I'm very grateful to have you on the show again.
It's so good to be here. You're always bringing topics to our community that need to be talked about. And I'm just honored that you would ask us.
Thank you. Thank you. So there's a lot of new people. I know you've seen it. 77, driving 77 is ridiculous. And they're talking about adding like 34,000 new people. There's a lot of people that may not know you. You've been in a community a long time. Can you kind of tell them brief about you?
Yeah, I grew up here in Waxahachie, and I graduated high school in around 92. And when my husband and I got married, we lived in Central Texas for a while and about 11 years. And during that time, I had the opportunity to go work at a residential treatment center for emotionally disturbed children. And so these are children who had chronic, complex traumas due to abuse, neglect, crimes that had been committed against them. And they were in the foster care system. And this was kind of last ditch effort to help them get their behaviors in order and figure out what was on their heart that was getting in the way of them being able to make it in a family or be able to do school. And so that taught me a lot about what's at stake here. And so I worked in the foster care system for about 21 years. I was a licensed child placing agency administrator for a Christian nonprofit organization that covers all of Texas. And I was a regional director. My area was Dallas, Fort Worth, Dallas, Tyler, Texarkana, and at one time all the way down to Lubbock. So a very large part of our state, and had about 200 children under my care. And we worked with kids in the foster care system who had, again, lots of traumas. And so my job was to help foster parents be prepared and train them and then match children with the families. And so through that, I learned even more about how to help kids who are coming from hard places, how to help the families help them. And I just had an opportunity in 2018 to come back to my hometown and serve the children of Ellis County. And I feel like that I have been able to make more of an impact in Ellis County than I ever did in foster care, which is exciting to me because we get to be on the cutting edge of the very beginning, or the tip of the spear, in terms of when children come in and families come into the first time of experiencing these systems of law enforcement, child protective services, an investigation that's happening. We get to change the trajectory of these children's lives and these families' lives. So it means a great deal to me. And I think God put me on this journey on purpose to learn the things I needed to learn in order to do this job well.
I, I have people on the show all the time, whether it be local or I just interviewed somebody from Melbourne, Australia. I love people who dedicate their lives to making humanity better. And that's what you've done. You've dedicated your life to making humanity better, one kid at a time. And that is beautiful. So thank you for doing that. I know this kind of work kind of takes a toll on somebody. It has to. So what keeps you going personally when it comes to this stuff?
So I asked my staff this because we get this question a lot. Like, I don't know how you do what you do. I couldn't do what you do. And I think in my life, I've had things that I had to overcome, and I had some really great people around me that showed me how to love and how to be loved. My grandparents, my mother, my aunts and uncles, they were all around me, and the bigger community, because my family were a bunch of educators. So there was a lot of people, a lot of eyes on us to make sure that we were okay. Not every kid gets that in our community. So being that for kids, being able to provide services for them, and services that they're getting in Tarrant County or Dallas County, our kids in Ellis County deserve to have the same level of array of services than our big cities. And so what does it take to do that? And that also fuels me because when I started in 2018, we had 100 children on our waiting list for therapy services. And that was just not okay for me, because that's their opportunity to heal and to recover from the abuses that they've been experienced. And without it, like, what are we doing here? So I went about building a program from where it had come, since, about 1997, they had been building this program, but we really needed to look at how to serve more kids. And what you're talking about with the influx of people coming into our community, which there's some really great things about that, and there's some really hard things about that. We need to be prepared for what a larger community brings to us.
Mhm.
So, as leaders in the nonprofit sector that are serving victims, we need to understand that when more people come, unfortunately, we're going to have more victims of crime.
That is that is that is the thing. That is correct. I mean, I was talking
Mhm.
with I had the Ellis County DA on, Miss Lindy Beatty, and she was
Yes.
telling me that these crimes are you're starting to see it more and more because it's just more people, and you're gonna get that. And then coming out of the pandemic, there was also a rise in domestic violence and stuff, and there just the kids are always affected when there's kids in this. So what is the core mission of the Ellis County Children's Advocacy Center? And then we can go
Mhm.
into kind of the things they do for children, and then we'll go into kind of stories that you have to do.
Yeah. So, the Ellis County Children's Advocacy Center was born out of the need for our big systems to work together better for kids. And kids fell through the cracks between our big systems of law enforcement, child protective services. And our hope is to do a better job of facilitating a multidisciplinary team response. And what I mean by multidisciplinary means law enforcement. The Children's Advocacy Center has professional forensic interviewers, mental health providers, family advocates, but also our DA's office is one of our partners. There's a medical response that happens when there's a crime against a child, like a sexual assault. We partner with Cook Children's Medical Center in Dallas, and those systems, all of us working together. And I cannot forget DFPS, Department of Family and Protective Services. Those are big systems. And what we needed was to be able to jointly investigate these crimes, because oftentimes DFPS would have a portion of information, law enforcement would have other information, and together, whenever they are able to communicate and work together, it creates better outcomes and ultimately can create justice for kids, because the cases that are handed into the DA's office are better investigated. They have the victims centered, we keep it a victim centered response. And so the victims are more prepared to go through the process of justice as well. So if I were to say the mission of the Children's Advocacy Center, it is to provide justice, hope, and healing through a multidisciplinary team response to child abuse or child crimes against children. And our vision is to serve every child that meets our criteria, to provide every to service. And that's what I was talking about, to provide a full array of services available through Children's Advocacy Centers. And then the third thing is to provide every effort, which the every effort part, we have to look at our data. We have to look at how are we doing with the work that we're doing? Are we doing it well? Could we improve? So that quality improvement is going through all the time. We're always looking at how we can improve these systems. So how this plays out in Ellis County is, since 2023, so just in the last 3 years, we have had 108 cases of commercial sexual exploitation that we have served at the center.
Oh my God. I mean, well, I mean, I know it's an issue. I know it's an issue. But the thing that I love about my show is trying to present this information that's happening in Ellis County. So you said how many?
We've had 108 cases of commercial sexual exploitation that we have served at the center since 2023. So that's when we started really talking about the data. We started collecting the data on kids that were commercially exploited. So that can be trafficking, that can be what we call CSAM, or commercial sexual abuse materials. In the olden days, we called it child pornography, and those cases are happening in Ellis County, and they're more prevalent now because, one, we're recognizing it when it happens better. We're educating our community about what it is and what it's not, and people are able to report it a lot better. Law enforcement is able to recognize it even more now because of their training and information that's being shared within the partners. But also, we're doing a better job of knowing what to do when we have cases like this. And so we started gathering the data a few years ago. And when I saw it all together, I was like, wow, that's 108 children that we really would not have done anything special necessarily with when I started in 18. The average age of our kids is about 15 years old, but we have seen as young as 9 years old in our community. Our youngest victim was 9. And most children who have been human trafficked or end up with commercial sexual exploitation that happens to them, they've had a history of sexual abuse earlier in their life. So when we make a big deal about helping kids who have been sexually abused, that's because we can see down the line what happens if we don't intervene, if we don't help that child to the fullest extent when it happens for the first time. I think it would be interesting for you to know that 6 kids were since 2023 have been male. So some people think that this is a problem just for little girls or young girls, but it's also males have been lured into this.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's susceptible. Any kid is susceptible to this. That is a horrible industry because it's an industry and it's a horrible industry and nobody's safe from it. What is the biggest misconception you think that the people of Ellis County have about what you do and what's going on with this issue?
I think what's hard is understanding how it happens or how it occurs, because there's a lot of information out there about, there's movies that portray what human trafficking looks like in other countries. And honestly, it's just not, it doesn't look like that in what I have experienced here domestically or in our county. Our county, we have the way that people are being able to have access to our kids is through social media. Um, and the number one social media, I guess, platform was Snapchat. But there's a ton of other social media apps that were used. Some people don't understand that Pinterest, we've had 3 cases that had to do with Pinterest. Pinterest seems like it would be a very, you know, non-threatening type of application, but there's a chat feature in there where people can direct message kids. And another one is Roblox. Roblox concerns me not because of what it does. It does some really great things to teach kids about science, math, technology, and so the STEM area of education. But I think parents are not as concerned about it because, oh, the schools use this in order to teach STEM and they're great for learning um, so parents, their defenses are down a little bit on it. And so there's an older version that allows for chatting. And so when that chat feature is on, that's when people can have access to kids that parents don't realize they have access to. So just to name all of the apps that we've encountered victims with, it's been Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Tinder, Snapchat, Pinterest, Grindr, WhatsApp, Instagram, Roblox, Discord. Discord is one that was, I found out about what Discord was because my husband likes to play strategy games. And he, in order for his alliance to be able to communicate openly, they go on Discord and they plan, strategy for the game. But they formed real friendships through that app, and they were able to video call each other or have a Friday afternoon, talk on the way home from work. So that is not something as a parent that I would go, let me see your Discord. I would, if you don't know that they've added it on there, you're looking at their text messages, you're looking at their phone calls. Who are you talking to? Who are you, having a conversation with? But some parents don't realize that they're being able to do the same things within an app. And one of our victims was coerced to go from playing Xbox games live to Discord, and they kind of took it offline. And that's how he started building a relationship with her. That guy lived in Las Vegas. He continued to groom our kid, who was 13 to start with and then turned 14. And then he said, hey, I'm going to send you a t-shirt. She says, awesome. I'd love to have a graphic design t-shirt for a game. So this little kid's like, yes, I want that. He says, okay, send me your address. She sends him his address because she's in love with this guy. And she thinks this relationship is moving forward because she's lonely and she has a need to be met. She wants to create a connection with someone. So he sends her the t-shirt. She's like, hey, I got this awesome t-shirt. Look. And she shows it to him. He says, yeah, about that t-shirt. Now I need you to send me some nudes. And so she starts sending him nude pictures. Well, the fact that he sent her an item of value creates a commercial element to it because he gave her something of worth for the pictures. So then it didn't stop there. That man got tickets, an airline ticket to come to Ellis County and met up with our kid and abused our kid, sexually assaulted her. She said, I don't want to do this. This is not what I wanted. And so he's taken her to drop her off at her house, but her parents had called the sheriff's office and they were there, and so he dropped her off further out from her house. They were very on it whenever they were there. As soon as she got home, they said, let's get you to Cook Children's Hospital. So they did a sexual assault nurse examination. They did everything that they needed to do. They collected the evidence, and then they went and got this guy in Las Vegas and arrested him. He stood trial. It was our first human trafficking case, and it was, I think, in 2024 in October. I know it was in October. I may have the year wrong, but it's only been a few years. And it was our first trafficking case that they tried, and this guy got a life sentence. So these are heinous crimes that are being committed against children, and we have to take them seriously and provide the resources that are needed to help the victims recover. Because what you don't want to happen is have kids who have not recovered from this, and then they continue the harmful behaviors that they've gotten into.
One of the other things that get me when, I look at my friends and people I know in this community is how open they are to posting the pictures of their children. They will post a picture of their children, all kinds of pictures of their children, and put it up everywhere. Look how cute, how cute, how cute. And I mean, my line of work, I have to deal with people who have been convicted of these ugly crimes, and they talk about how they get these pictures. And so,
Mhm.
I've tried to warn people about that because you want to put your kid online. If they did something nice or whatever, it's a beautiful thing, but there's evil in the world, and they do take those pictures. And sometimes I've heard of them tracing those kids, finding those kids, these people, and I'm sure you've heard something similar. So,
Yes, I would just say even more so. I know, it's as we've evolved and kids have had more and more and more access to phones. I think of, what I'm holding in my hand right now is, for a kid who's not been trained, it's like driving a Ferrari. Please don't put me behind the wheel of a Ferrari. I will probably wreck it because I don't know how to drive it. And it's very powerful. So what can we do to protect the children that are getting on, online? It's like a combination. They're going into these apps to seek approval from their peers. And so much of their self-esteem and their self-worth is wrapped up in a like button or a heart. And then you couple that with just the need to connect with others. And the online presence is so much easier to just make a connection because people are ready to connect with you. And then our kids are just vulnerable. So it's like we're giving them phones. They don't know how to drive a stick shift, but we're asking them to and not giving them any guardrails. And then we're surprised um, when they've been victimized online. So that is one of the areas, we still see many allegations of sexual abuse, physical abuse, but I brought to your attention the commercial sexual exploitation just because it's something that we're realizing more and more, and it is very hard to recover from it once kids have been sexually exploited and trafficked. So I believe that it really does something to our how our brain functions, and then those kids will seek out that behavior again and again. And so it's really hard to stop it once it starts.
You lose so many things when in that. I mean, there's just it's unspeakable. And there are years and years and years. There's people who are grown adults and still haven't recovered from the sexual abuse that they experienced as kids. It's just a horrible thing. But tell me, when a kid walks in, what is step one? Maybe there's somebody who's gonna watch this show and they want to get what is step one?
Well, you said when a kid walks in, I'm going to back it up just a little bit.
Hmm.
It takes a community that recognizes abuse when it happens, and we'll tie that in just a little bit, what we're trying to do in the month of April.
Yeah.
But our community has to recognize abuse or neglect or a crime that's been committed against a child. So one of our jobs has been to get out in the community, get in front of school and at schools and try to teach kids how to protect themselves from these vulnerabilities and to know how to tell in a way that the adults understand and that they're listening. Um, and then also get in front of the adults. We work with schools quite a bit. I go to a lot of churches where kids are being served and try to help them understand what are the trends and things that we're seeing so that they can recognize it. Those are our community are the ones who report abuse and neglect. And so they can report it to law enforcement or they can report it to the child abuse hotline, the DFPS child abuse hotline. So those are the two ways that a child can come to the Children's Advocacy Center. We cannot follow, we're written into the Texas Family Code to exist, but we have specific laws we have to follow, and that is our two referral sources is from law enforcement or child protective services. So some people are confused about that. They think they can just bring a child to just have a forensic interview. That's not how it works. It has to be a referral through those two sources because we don't have the authority to investigate. In fact, we're not investigators. We provide a forensic interview that is a legally sound, developmentally appropriate interview for children, but we are not investigators and we cannot speak to how they investigate or what they do. So, but we can help facilitate the response. So, how it works is we'll get a referral from law enforcement or child protective services, and then we will schedule a time for the child and the family to come to the center. Oftentimes 70% of the time it's 70% of the time it's someone at a school district that has made the call because they're spending a lot of time with kids. But 97% of the time, it's someone that they know or someone that's a close family friend or in the family. So we have to be careful about who brings the child to the center because we want the child to have a neutral environment to be able to talk about what happened. So they come to the center and they meet someone at the front has a very nice smile on their face and is helping them get their needs met. If they need a soda, they need coffee, they need like a juice box, or we had a kid that the other day he wanted a yoo-hoo, but he called it a hoo-hoo, and it was so cute. He was like, can I have another hoo-hoo? And we were like, absolutely, you can
Yeah.
have another
All the
hoo-hoo.
hoo-hoos you want. Yeah.
All the hoo-hoos you want. It was precious. So the next thing that's going to happen, they're not going to see law enforcement or child protective services when they walk into our building most of the time. They're going to be in the observation room because we want to reduce the trauma that children experience whenever they have to come and talk. So it's a child-friendly environment. we have a person who is trained on how to talk to kids. So usually it's social workers or someone in the social sciences that has been trained an extra, like after they have a bachelor's or master's degree, they still have to go through a year of training to become a forensic interviewer. And so, because the things that they ask the children have to be legally sound, we cannot be biased, we cannot be leading in our questions. And so, we have to follow a semi structured process in order to talk with the children to make sure that we are only gathering information that the child is giving us. And so they follow that process. A child will go into the forensic interview room where there's cameras and there's really sensitive microphones so that the multidisciplinary team that I talked about before, they can watch what happens as it's happening. We also always tell kids that they're being recorded. I think it's very disrespectful to children for us not to let them know that people are also watching. And kids are more resilient and they're braver than we give them credit for. So we don't tell fibs to kids. And so we make sure that they understand what they're, what's fixing to happen and make sure that they're comfortable. And then they go to do the forensic interview. While that's happening, we have a family advocate that's meeting with the family members because you would not believe the things that families are going through while they're dealing with, a sexual abuse or physical abuse in their families. You had mentioned domestic violence victims, and we have to work really close with our partners in the community to make sure that, where our services stop, we're able to get them to other services that specialize in domestic violence and can help
Do you
them.
work with the Heights Center? Do you work closely with them?
Yeah, it's one of those things where we can refer to them. And like I said, we get referrals from CPS or law enforcement. So they would have to make a referral to one of those agencies in order for them to come to us. And that's just because of Texas Family Code. But yes, we need them to be strong and to have the services because there's limited things that we can do here in Ellis County. And so that's one of the things that I'm happiest about, that we're finally building some services that we have needed in Ellis County, and we've just not been able to support in the long term. In fact, my mother, who is a licensed professional counselor, her name's Margaret Felty, and she actually started with the Waxahachie Police Department, one of the first women battered shelters in the 80s.
Wow.
And they had safe houses. They had places for people to go if they were victims of domestic violence, but the funding was just not there and didn't support it. And so the funding sources changed on the governmental level. And so we need to help support because our government is not going to pay fully 100% our programs. So that's just a little commercial for people to understand. We have big needs and we have multiple. It's good that we have multiple agencies to serve the victims of crime because we kind of specialize in what we're doing.
Yeah, and you're doing lots of different things, and this takes money, and that's kind of the leads off into what we're doing. And I mean, it sucks that you have to talk about money in these things. I mean, nobody wants to do that, but then those functions have to happen to protect kids, and that unfortunately costs money. So there's a big event going on in April.
There is, and I would just say first, if it was your child that this happened to, wouldn't you want the highest trained professionals who are experts in child trauma to be the ones serving you? And that's what we have at the Children's Advocacy Center. We have the highest trained people to help, and they're experts in our field. They provide expert testimony in the courts, and they have experience to know what to do to help the child recover and help the family help the child recover, because I think that's a really important part. So it takes a lot of money. We've always done big events in Ellis County. We did for 5 years. We worked with our other friends at Ellis County CASA, which are court-appointed special advocates. They're kind of, if you think about the continuum of we're at the very beginning and there once a child's been removed and it placed in foster care, both are very needed and both do very different things. But we would do a big event and we would throw a big old party and it was a lot of fun and we raised good money. But to me, what was missing was people could leave that party, that event, and really not understand any more about child abuse or understand about our agencies and what we do. And I really wanted to do something grassroots that helped people first be aware and then work to prevent. So it is an awareness campaign, but it's also our work to prevent this from happening in Ellis County. So we called it Paint the Town Blue because April is Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month. And with that, we thought, blue is the color of child abuse. My t-shirt here is one of our t-shirts for this year. And on the back of it, it says, in April, we wear blue. And it's to bring awareness that this is an issue in our community. And we have an opportunity to share it with others that we have a solution. And so Paint the Town Blue, companies, individuals, we have different levels of support, from corporations all the way down to individuals. Our main sponsor, our $10,000 sponsor, was GAF, and we're very proud to partner with them. So, yeah, you're showing the different levels that they can have. We have a really cool it's like a political sign size, and it says Paint the Town Blue, and you can put it in your yard, and we have pinwheels that go with it. And it's just a nice showing that your home, your space wants to protect children in Ellis County. And it's also a major fundraiser for us. So we thought, what better way to do this than having a party? We want to educate people. We want to bring about awareness, and we need to do a better job of that. The Children's Advocacy Center needs to do a better job of that.
I that is a beautiful thing and a beautiful cause. And I'm hoping that, all of you that watch the show will consider donating or being part of this and sponsorship. And, I'm also going to play my part. I believe you got like a $250 sponsorship one. And I'd like to do
Yeah.
that for the cause that we've been talking about for years. And, I'd like to be part of that. And I commit to being that kind of sponsor for that on behalf of DB LeBron, the Ellis Talker Show.
Hey, DV, that is so cool. I mean, you support us in so many ways. You're always talking. You're always willing to have us on. But that show of support really means a lot to me. So thank you so much for that. And I think you will encourage others to be a part of it. I've been really surprised. We've done more in the last couple of months to raise awareness about our programs than we have ever done. And part of it is because eventually we're going to have a capital campaign and build a larger building because we're out of space. Currently, or in our home on the corner of Ross and Farley Street, but we also rent one of the group homes from Texas Baptist Home, one of the old group homes, and it's the Palmer House, and that's where we do all of our mental health services, and Ollie's Place is over there. So we're not even under one roof now, co-locate with law enforcement and child protective investigators. So if we're really to do this well in Ellis County, it's time to provide a facility that will allow us to do those things. So in medical, we don't have a medical response in our building, which can you imagine a family having to drive 30 miles to either Fort Worth or Dallas after they've experienced a sexual assault. So we want to have everything that we can under our roof as much as possible so that we can provide all the services in one place. So that's what's coming. But the more people we can get involved in this, the more that they've shared. I mean, we've had individuals that have kind of caught on to it, and then they've been sharing their experiences, which that is beautiful to me. It's important to me because this is what I have chosen to dedicate my life to. But to see community members that are like, this is my story and this is why I'm sharing it. And I wish that I had had a children's advocacy center whenever I was little, man.
Yeah.
That makes a huge difference to me.
I mean, I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim of anything, but I did experience that as a kid. So it's something that is personal because it affects you all the way up, when you've been abused.
Mm-hmm.
and there wasn't the resources. This was the 80s. You just kind of, you know, tough up and keep going. Bad things
Just
happen.
suck it up.
So having these things, for these kids and this service is beautiful. I hope y'all will consider donating. I know things are hard and I know gas is expensive, but any way you can help
Yeah.
this cause, I would appreciate it. Leslie, I really appreciate you coming on. Do you have anything else you want to tell them?
I would just say that we are always looking for people who want to support us now for an event, but also recurring donors really help us to make ends meet throughout the year. And we have a thing called the Pinwheel Society, and those Pinwheel Society members really do a lot to help us stay afloat all year long. We had a big audit that happened that we do every year as a financial audit. And I'm proud to say 87% of our funding goes straight back to programs, which is a really high percentage of,
It is.
administrative costs, versus our program cost. And so just know that if you become a recurring donor, that it will help us sustain throughout the year when between grants and between, those things come and go. And so we've seen big changes in our governmental grants, and we need to, as a community, be prepared that we take care of our own. So recurring donors would be something that you could do all year long. It doesn't have to be a lot. And like you said, it doesn't have to break the bank. And I know our gas prices at my house have risen quite a bit. And so it is harder. And we have to make choices. But if you're going to make a choice, protecting our children is one of the best choices that they can make.
It sure is. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Can you stick around real quick afterwards?
Absolutely.